Hello, my little draconic wolfkins. I hope that you guys are all doing well. If you like what you see and hear, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to get notifications. Alright, let's get into it. This happened in the summer of 2024. I, 20 female at the time, had gone on a trip to Moab. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Utah with my roommate and best friend since high school, Kendall, 21 female at the time. We had last minute joined her family's trip celebrating her sister's high school graduation. We lived a few hours by car from Moab, which had just reopened after being closed to the public due to COVID. They had plans to go skydiving, and we were excited to tag along. Our plan was to drive separately, stay the night on the couch of her family's Airbnb, go skydiving with them, and then stay the last night at the small cabin in the campground right outside town, just the two of us as an added adventure. We had never been on a trip as adults, staying on our own, and were excited to have the independence. Fast forward, we had a great trip down there, as well as a fun first night with Kendall's family. We all went skydiving in the morning early. It was beautiful. After Kendall and I had a huge adrenaline rush and decided to go for a hike to a watering hole. There we explored and even did a small cliff jump into the water. By the end of the day, we were exhausted physically from our activities and from the rush and now drop of adrenaline. We had choked We had checked into our campground, which was about 10 miles from town. There was a general store at the mouth of the property with some unfriendly older cashier to check us in. But we didn't think much of it. The campground was made of different sections for tents, RVs, and small cabins. When I say small cabins, I mean room for twin beds and a chair and hardly anything else. We stayed in one of those. Like I said, Moab had just reopened to tourists, so besides us, we saw one other family of three staying in the entire campground. We also noticed we didn't have any cell phone signal in the camp. Remember that. By nightfall, we could hardly move our bodies, so we were so sore and spent about an hour in our camp chairs under the stars drinking a few Mike's Hards. Before I knew it, I realized we had little too much for being unfamiliar place on our own, but shook it off. We decided to call it a night and grabbed our lanterns to head into the commercial bathrooms to wash our faces. Also, I'll add now that Kendall has sprained her ankle a month prior to this and was wearing a boot on her right leg. Yes, she went skydiving and hiking with this. We were young and eager to get out after lockdown, but she was unable to drive with the ankle on her foot needed to be at to brake safely. So I had been doing all the driving. We made our way to the bathroom, giggling throughout the pitch dark with our light. We reached the hut that held the 4 separate bathrooms. Each had a shower directly across from the door and a toilet and a sink against one wall. We swung the door open, eager to get out of the dark and flipped the light switch on. I entered the room first and immediately stopped in my tracks. Kendall stopped in the doorway. We both went silent. There was something off. I didn't know how to describe it, but it was like an intense feeling something was wrong. We stared forward at the shower, which had the curtain half drawn closed. There was some kind of short stepping stool in the middle of the shower with the front 2 legs poking out from behind the curtain. My eyes started to rise, and I could just make out the faint silhouette of a person standing on the stool behind the thin curtain. We stood there frozen in shock, confusion, and disbelief. There couldn't be someone hiding behind the curtain like a scary movie. Suddenly, Kendall broke the silence. "What's that?" I looked to my right. There was a sink. Propped on the sink against the mirror was an iPhone with the screen facing us. The screen was out and recording. That snapped me out of my trance. I shouted nope, and we both turned around and basically ran back to our cabin. We locked the door and tried to figure out what we just walked into. We couldn't call anyone because we had no signal, and this was our first time staying somewhere new on our own. I had been drinking and didn't feel confident that I could drive through the rocks and sharp turns that made it back to the highway. We tried to calm ourselves down, talk our way out of what we saw. We had turned the lights off, of course. I couldn't get the image of someone looking through the small one window on our door leading into our cabin. We were all alone in this campground, completely exhausted physically from our skydiving and hiking. I know it sounds dumb, but at the time, we were so confused and tired, we just decided to go to sleep and leave first thing in the morning. We pushed our beds together and lay there in the dark silence. I started to think about the staff who worked in the campground and if they, knowing it was almost empty, had been one of the bathrooms or we were just mistaken what we saw. About 10 minutes into laying there, Kendall said, "You know what's weird?" I froze, waiting to hear something to add to this horrible situation. She told me about earlier when she had gone to take a shower, when she looked up and saw a blinking blue light in the vent above the shower. I didn't say anything. We left in the morning and never spoke about it again. Honestly, I know we didn't handle the situation well. Please don't get on me in the comments. If it had been now, there's no way we wouldn't have reported it, but we were young and scared. We didn't know how to process what was happening. I still don't know really what happened. Anyway, we never stayed there again. Sorry it was so long. Kinda relived it while writing it.